This past summer, I was down at a lake down in the Minneapolis area, and a buddy of mine exposed me to a brand new sport. It involves this thing. I don't know if you've seen this before. I just want to hold that up a little bit. Everyone can see it. Ooh, this is called a paddle board. And what it is you stand on it, on a lake, and you get a really long paddle like this. And then you paddle your way around the lake. Now, what's cool about it is you got to work on your balance. And so it's really good for your core exercise. You really got to kind of concentrate. Well, I'm doing it. I'm having a great time with this priest buddy of mine. We're enjoying it. Then, this huge, big speedboat goes by. Whoa! And I fall off. I'm in the water. Because behind the speedboat was this huge, big wave, or this big wake. So I was thinking about the readings today, and it occurred to me that probably every one of us create a wake by what we do. Our words, our actions. We've got some kind of response. Now, there's a story. There's a man who came to talk to the priest. And the man said, "Father, I got to tell you, I like money. I don't really care for anything else. I like getting money." And the priest is like, "Whoa, okay. Well, how about other things? How about religion?" The man said, "Oh, I can't stand religion. I don't want any of that kind of stuff." But the priest said, no. Everybody has a religion. The man said, "No, I don't have any religion. I don't go to church. I don't do any of that." No, the priest said, "You may not have organized religion, but everybody has principles or values that they follow. And if you're not sure what your religion is or what your principles are, just look at the wake that you leave behind you." Another way of thinking that, the priest said, is ask your friends if they can tell you what your priorities are. If they could identify for you, what are your values? Now, in the gospel, Jesus is talking about big principle. He's talking about what does it mean to follow him. Indeed, not just to talk about it, not just to discuss it, but actually to live it out. Jesus is very clear because he says, okay, tells the man, the commandments, don't do this, don't do that, that's fine, that's okay. Many of us, we spend our whole lives thinking, oh, that's all I need to do. If I don't do this or don't do that. Jesus is real clear. He said, no. What you got to do is recognize how you take care of somebody else. What your wake is behind you, as I would say. So here's an image for you. Think of your life as a garden, okay? And everything that's planted in your garden is all the things in your life. I mean, your worries, your joys, your possessions, your job, your family, all that stuff is in your garden. You got to determine, okay, what is harvested from all this stuff? What is the fruit of my life? How do people know about me by what comes from my garden? Now I would say, when you're trying to figure out your priorities, Jesus is really clear in the gospel when he says, now your priorities really have to look at what you do to help others financially. You just heard it. And I would say a way to figure that out for yourself is just look at your credit card bill. You're going to get an idea of what you hold as important. Or look at your checkbook. Where are your priorities? priorities? Where and how do you spend your money? It's real simple. Now, in the first reading, King Solomon, he could have had anything. He said, possessions, I want to be victory over the other kingdoms, anything. But he says, what I really want is wisdom. A way of saying that is like, I really want to know what you want from me, God. And I say for any of us, that's a wonderful, wonderful prayer that we can make. God, what do you want for us? So in the realm of church stuff, what we say is, look at your priorities as far as how you spend your money. And what do you spend it on? Now, a couple weeks ago, I talked about everyone and nudging them, say, everybody, give more money. It's the reading from James. And since then, a couple people have come to me and said, okay, but how much should we give? Well, to help you out, what we did is we put this insert in the bulletin this week. And what this talks about is, again, an appropriate amount to give back to God. Now, the biblical notion of this is called tithing. And what it means is that you give 10% back to God. 10% of all that you make. Now, what that means is part of that money should be all those charities and organizations. Think of strive for 4% of what you give. Another 1% goes to the diocese to help them do all the things like Catholic charities and helping those who are down and out and counseling services. But then 5% of what you give to the church. Now that seems like a lot, and it is. But I would ask you to sit down this week and figure out how much you currently give to the church. Figure it out, and what percentage that is. And what you got to do is you look at your whole income for the year and then say, okay, what part is going back to God? Or what part is going to the church? For some, you'd be surprised it's not even 1%. So my challenge for you, whatever percentage you are, is to increase it 1%. Let's say you figure out that you're already giving 1% now. Well, increase it to 2%. Here's how you can help with that. Just think for yourself this past week. How much you spent eating out. Okay, just I went here, got that. And then compare that to how much you are planning to give to the church today. Which is more. Or just think how much you have spent on coffee this week. Then how does that compare to what you give each month back to God? Now some of you families, you got kids and you're involved in activities, you're involved in sports, and of course that takes money to get them involved. But what does it say to your kids when you say, this is how much we got to spend on sports, and then whatever's left over we'll give to God? What does that teach them? As opposed to what are your priorities? Where is God in your life? Thinking about, again, and you just heard it, where Jesus says, it's not just about what you don't do, but it's what you do to go make a difference. How you indeed can invest in the parish so that we can help others, so that we can help the poor. We've got all these programs that we do, but it's because of your generosity. It's because of you recognizing the priority of where you are with God. Now, as I'm in the water after falling off my paddleboard, what I noticed with this big boat going by is that in that big wave it created, that big wake it created, there was actually a person surfing on that wave. No rope, no nothing. Surfing like on a surfboard. I'm like, wow, I've never seen anything like that. And I got to thinking, that's That's what it's about, having fun. Being of joy. Because indeed, any wake that we create is meant for joy. Now, the funny thing about this tithing thing is that anybody who has actually ever given back 10% to God has never been in financial need. There's something miraculous and wonderful about it. And those people who struggle and say, oh, I don't have enough money here and I can't make any of that, I say, well, what do you give to God? It's the whole idea of trusting ourselves. And Jesus, you just heard him said that you know when you put your priorities right, that God's going to take care of you. It always, always happens. And maybe you're not at a point to do the 10%, because typically Catholics are pretty cheap, really. I mean, you're just tight compared to any other denomination. I think the reason for that is because for decades, centuries, we've relied on cheap help. The nuns will work for nothing. We get by with this. We don't have to do that. But isn't it about time that you would step up to respond to what the Scriptures say? Isn't it about time that you enter into this joyfulness? Indeed, to invest in the parish, not because of guilt and the priest is making us give more. No. But because how God is going to bless you. Because you believe in this parish and what we are doing to make a difference in the world. As we come together as community. Because you recognize that sense of joyfulness. So, what I'd like you to do is look at the sheet this week. Sit down, actually, figure out with a calculator what percent you are giving. And increase it. I don't mean next year. I'm talking about this coming weekend to give. I'm not just talking about you parents. I'm talking about everybody there. I'm talking to you kids to start bringing money to the church, give back to God. Well, it's a nickel. I'm talking to you senior citizens who think, oh, I've got limited income. Take advantage of God's grace. And here's your other challenge. Let's say you're the guy in the gospel. Let's say you're the guy who comes to Jesus and says, okay, Jesus, I really want to follow you. I really want to be close to you. What would Jesus say to you? What would Jesus tell you